Hi and greetings from Gosford this morning. It's Greg again. You can probably hear from the background noise I'm somewhere in the bush or the rainforest, as I would say, and that's exactly where I am, at a place called Narara, sitting outside a very beautiful bushy area, and you can hear the cicadas and different creatures in the background. It's very beautiful, really. We had a very big storm here last night. I measured about 13 mils of rain, about half an inch in the old scale, and everything is just looking so incredibly fresh and alive, and it's as if all the creatures are singing their sense of joy at being alive and refreshed, and possibly having a slightly cooler, if not somewhat humid morning this morning. We got up to about 31, I think it was, yesterday, so not as bad as last weekend, but nevertheless very warm. Look, I wanted to share with you today an experience I had last week while I was meditating. In one sense, I found the experience very confronting, but I didn't allow myself to go down that track. Instead, I just have allowed myself to sit with the experience to try and work out, or not to try and work it out, but rather just to allow it to speak to me without any judgment or any anxiety or anything like that. But it was a very, very profound experience, and I actually shared this experience. I belong to a couple of international groups of people, like-minded people who are very much interested in, I suppose, their spiritual journey, for want of a better way of putting it, and understanding their own life experiences, etc. And I had some really extraordinary feedback, which has helped me to really appreciate the experience that I had, because I sort of figured that the experience I had is not just an experience that somebody like myself would have if they're open to it. It's sort of very much a universal human experience, and as such, something that anybody could have if they are open to it, and if they are, I suppose, on a path of opening up to their own true nature, their own true essence, etc. So while I was in meditation, the experience was this. As I listened to the meditation, and it had some very, very, very lovely music which took you into a pretty deep state of relaxation, and just the occasional words from Muji, who was responsible for the guided meditation. So as I listened to him and then to the music, I had this image come to me of somebody I recognised but I had forgotten. And the image was an image of me, carefree, unburdened, happy, joyful, flitting here, flitting there. But it was obviously a younger version of me, somebody I had truly forgotten. And in fact, in all honesty, I don't remember ever being carefree, flitting here, flitting there, not having some form of issue or burden or something I've been struggling with. I just don't remember that. But there was a time when that was the case. And it was the most profound experience, because I suddenly realised at a deeper level my own essence as being something like that, totally carefree, totally unencumbered, alive, joyful, experiencing whatever it is I might be experiencing. As that faded, I then had a sense of a very profound awareness of my body, my physical body, as it is today. And as I became aware of my physical body, the other image faded completely, and I became deeply aware of a whole host of aches and pains and basically all the physical things that go with your body as you begin to age and decline in life and can't do the things you used to do when you were younger, etc., etc. But what I was left with was a profound sense of the impact that a lot of my experiences have had on me. And everybody, no matter who you are, you're going to experience things. Some people, for some reason, experience a lot of tragedies in their life, more so than others do. And the reality is that those individuals have to learn to cope with the tragedies that they experience. Not everybody goes through that same degree of suffering, and not everybody has the same degree of negative experiences that another might have. And I've often pondered this thought: why is it that seemingly good people suffer? Well, I became profoundly aware of many experiences that I have had, whether it be health issues, whether it be issues that arose out of my time in the Catholic Church and the different forms of abuse that I experienced there. There's a whole range of things, things to do with my wife and having to learn to live with her illness and not allow that to destroy us. There's lots of things I can think of. But one thing I became aware of is that all of those things have taken a toll on my body, on me physically. And whether I like it or whether I don't, I became aware that I am carrying the energies of all those things within my body. And they have impacted upon my own physical health and well-being for many, many, many years. And when I began to contrast that initial image of myself, of the young, carefree, totally unburdened individual, with the second image of myself, which is one who has been burdened by a lot of different things and a lot of different struggles, issues I've had to transcend and rise above. As I became aware of those things, I was really taken aback, to be quite honest with you. It was actually quite confronting, the realisation of how much I have allowed myself to be impacted by those experiences. And what it said to me is, because I have been so unaware or unconscious of my own reality, these things have impacted me and dragged me down quite significantly. And I think the reality is, for most people, they don't have that level of self-awareness or consciousness where they can put into context a lot of the experiences that they have and understand the impact that those experiences can have on them. In fact, I think most people just, without necessarily acknowledging and saying that this is the case, most people have a victim mentality, but they don't realise that they've got it. And unfortunately, they resist, I think most of us resist the isness of what we are experiencing. For example, with the ageing process, the fact that we can't do the things that we used to do, I wonder how many of us try to keep doing those things knowing full well that we really are not able to do them anymore. That's a form of resistance. And with that resistance comes a certain level of grief, because we are grieving what was. And we're not necessarily comfortable with what now is. So I looked at that experience, and one of the guys that I belong to, I think I might have mentioned it, I belong to a couple of international groups of like-minded people who, I suppose, who share about their experiences as they journey through life, and they're both spiritual groups. But one of the guys commented to me about how when these things happen, they're inviting us to not only welcome how we might be at a particular point in time, but in welcoming how we feel and welcoming a particular experience, we can allow it to come and allow it to go without any judgment. That's a pretty profound way of dealing with things, because, if you get hit suddenly with, for argument's sake, an accident or an illness, there wouldn't be too many of us who would welcome the experience. We would resist the experience. We might even become depressed and angry. There's all sorts of ways that we can deal with these sort of things, with the loss that we feel. And yet, that very situation is a situation that is inviting you to transcend it. It's inviting you to say, yes, well, this has come into my life, but having come into my life, it's not me. It can come and it can go. My feelings about it, my emotions about it can come and go without me becoming totally attached to them, to the point that I lose my sense of peace and my sense of joy. All of us were the person that I mentioned, the first person I recognised, that joyful, carefree individual. But as we've experienced life, we've become burdened by the many things that have happened to us, and we've lost that sense of who we truly are. And all the experiences that we have, even though we might not like them and might not welcome them at first, all the experiences that we have are experiences that invite each of us to a deeper level of profound awareness of our true nature. Look, nothing is going to stop us aging. That's part of life. Nothing's going to prevent our body from being less able to do the things we were able to do when we were younger. And for a lot of people, that causes a huge amount of grief. Nothing's going to prevent you, for example, if you're a young person, experiencing something that's very, very tragic and difficult to handle. Doesn't matter what stage of life you are at, you are going to be confronted with things, and some people, for some reason, more so than others, but you're going to be confronted with issues that cause you psychological pain and suffering, or physical pain and suffering, or a combination of all the different pains and sufferings. Could be, for argument's sake, if you're a young married couple having your first child and you lose the child. It could be that you lose your job. I can think of all sorts of things that can happen to any one particular individual. There's no rhyme nor reason to it, it just happens. And I've had a lot of people contact me since I've been posting, wanting help with this, wanting help with that, wanting help to love, wanting help to be free, wanting help not to be angry, wanting help with money. There's no one answer for anybody. The reality is your circumstances in life are your circumstances in life. The question is what you do with those circumstances. And all the things in your life are beckoning you to a deeper level of awareness of your own truth and who you really are. And it's a case of learning to, hang on, let me rephrase that. When we have these experiences, and we're all going to have them, that situation is an invitation. And if you find yourself wanting it to be different, that says or suggests to me that you are resisting what you find yourself experiencing. And as Eckhart Tolle would say, what you are experiencing is exactly right for you, because that's what you're experiencing. The question is, what do you take out of that experience? And many of us resist that experience, and I've seen people become very angry and resentful because of what they have experienced. I remember a man when I was living in Western Australia, when I was in the church. I used to visit him regularly. He was at the Bunbury Regional Hospital, and he was dying of cancer, asbestosis, as it is known. And that man was a very bitter man, an extraordinarily bitter man. But he gave me the greatest gift in my life that I have never, ever forgotten, and that I am eternally grateful for. That man taught me the lesson of not allowing life to make you resentful. And yet so many of us, probably without even realising it, become exactly that. We become resentful because we resist the things that are happening to us. That particular man had a family, but they would not visit him because he pushed them away from him. I kept going to him until he passed away. I don't remember his name now, but the reality was he struggled with all the things that had happened to him in his life. He contracted cancer, as I said, and then ultimately died. But he died in one sense, my impression, I could be wrong here, but my impression was he died a very lonely man because of the bitterness in his heart. And you know, it's funny, you hear from time and time again people who contract an illness quite suddenly, and yes, it's a bit of a shock to their system, but the days that they have remaining are probably the best days of their life because they're living and they're allowing their life to be what it is for those remaining days that they have there, and they allow people to be who they are, and there's a sense of peace, a sense of joy, a sense of acceptance comes into their lives that perhaps they haven't experienced before. And in that happening, they become more alive than they have ever been. But for those who resist the things that are occurring in their life or that have happened in their life and think that they are wrong, they should not have happened, well, that is a way of thinking. But you know, at the end of the day, that's what happened. And as Eckhart Tolle would say, what is. And that is the very essence of our resistance. We resist what is. And it's that resistance that burdens us more and more and more and takes us away from our true identity as a spiritual being who is neither the physical body nor the mind, but you are a spiritual being experiencing a physical reality. And I've heard it written in one sense that it's like God is experiencing a physical reality through you. And St. Paul wrote, that might sound a bit strange to some people, but St. Paul wrote, I can't remember, I think it might have been in Corinthians or Ephesians, but in the New Testament, that we are all God's. And in other parts of the Old Testament and New Testament, there are references to the fact that we are made in the image and the likeness of God. But most of us don't realise that. Our essence, our nature, our true nature, is that of God. We are divine beings experiencing a physical life. And I suppose, in one sense, for me, that meditation that I did recently reminded me so much of who I really am as a divine being, totally carefree, totally unencumbered by physical things. And yet, as I've journeyed through life, I haven't recognized my true essence, and therefore have experienced a whole lot of things that have dragged me down. And it's only now, at this point in my life, that I can look at all those things and say to myself, well, they happened, what gifts they've been, what blessings they have brought me. And I know for sure I wouldn't be here right now where I am today if I had not had those experiences. I wouldn't be sharing the sort of things I share with people had I not had those experiences. But you see, it's all a case of how you look at things. And if you tend to be somebody who looks at things and resists things, that creates an element of negative energy. Look, I'm not saying it's easy to be accepting of things, not at all. But I would say that if you have the attitude of learning to accept things, bit by bit you grow into that experience of accepting something as it is. However, if you have the attitude of resisting, much like the fellow I spoke about when I was in Bunbury, who passed away, where you resist what really is, it creates a bitterness and an anger and a resentment within you that really is totally against your own true nature. And individuals become so unhappy because they can't handle the things that happen to them in life. They don't see the things that happen to them as gifts. They see the things that happen to them as negative things, and they have this, without even being consciously aware of it, they have this victim mentality. So in sharing these ideas with you today, I hope that what I'm saying makes a little bit of sense. It might be a bit difficult for some people, I accept that. But the path of freedom, if that is what you are really looking for, comes through learning to allow things to be as they are for you. There's always going to be, as my mother used to say, there's a silver lining in every dark cloud. And you've probably heard that phrase before. You might look at your circumstances, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Okay? The circumstances that you find yourself in are the circumstances that are right for you. And you might say, well, that's a load of you know what. It shouldn't be this way. But hang on, it is that way. So what are you going to do about it? What is that situation calling you to become? How are you being invited to rise above that situation? If you are so caught up in resistance, you won't see the door that is waiting to open for you that will lead you beyond what you are now experiencing. You will stay locked into what you are already experiencing. There's always going to be a door that will open, but that door that opens will only come through acceptance. It doesn't matter if you are extremely poor, it doesn't matter if you need money, it doesn't matter if you're struggling to provide for your family, it doesn't matter if you're struggling with illness. All those things are beckoning you to be with them as they are, so that the door that can open, that is meant to open for you, while you are caught up in your emotions and your anger and your resentment and your bitterness, you are not able to see the gift that is being presented to you through that situation. There's always a way to deal with things. I can't do that for you. You can't do that for me. But there is a way to deal with things. And the reality is you have to embrace whatever it is that you might be experiencing, even if you feel it's unjust, wrong, whatever you think about the situation. Just be open to it. Don't judge it. Don't resist it, but if you can just be open to it, allow that situation to speak to you, okay? then there will be a gem there for you that will lead you to a new, deeper and profound understanding, not only of yourself, but it will also provide you with the key of how to move forward with your circumstances. While you resist your circumstances, you're not being open to what the solution is that might be sitting there right in front of you that you expect somebody else to provide for you. Somebody else might be able to help you, but if you're so caught up in the negativeness of the situation, you won't be able to see what is there for you, waiting for you to recognise. And there's an old saying, there's none so blind as those who cannot see. And isn't that just so true? There's so many of us in life who cannot see what is right there before us because we are too caught up in emotions, in negative thinking, judgments, being cynical, whatever you want to call it. And yet those very things that you are judging, those very things that you get angry about, are the very things that are inviting you to rise above them and to discover your true potential, your true self. I hope in some way that these words help you. It's just absolutely beautiful sitting here listening to the cicadas and various crickets and so forth. I'm sure you can hear them in the background. I wish you every blessing, and I hope that in some way my words speak to your heart, and in some way that they might help you to embrace whatever it is you are experiencing at the moment. Not to resist it, but to embrace it. Allow it to be, allow it to speak to you. Invite it and make it welcome. That was what somebody said to me the other day. Invite it and make it welcome, rather than resisting and turning it away. If you invite it and you make it welcome, then you will begin to notice the transition, the change occurring, and you will begin to gently move forward, and oftentimes move forward in ways you would least have expected, because the answer happens to just present itself because you are open to the answer. Blessings to you all, and I will talk to you again in due course. God bless you all. Bye for now.